Mike, and if you have something, one way that God has rekindled a passion in your heart, we want to give you an opportunity to share. No one's going to be pressured to share, so don't freak out if you're new here or you don't want to share. But we're going to give you that opportunity in a couple of minutes or so. I want to share with you one story. A couple months ago, I got a phone call from Jennifer, and she said, "Hey, can I meet with you and just chat about an idea of what God might be doing in my heart?" I love conversations like that. And I'm not going to rob Jennifer the joy of sharing what God has done in her heart as far as God giving her a passion and responding to God and what he's done. So Jennifer, why don't you come on up here and share with us about what God has done. And it's been a great journey. And it's still, you're in the midst of it. So if you want to use that mic, go for it.
Not very good at this mic stuff. Okay, so I guess this journey started was because I felt really pulled. Every time someone would stand up and share, like Hostetlers would come and talk about adopting children, and I would go home and say, "We need to adopt 20 orphans right away." And my wonderful husband would look at me and smile and say no. Every time someone talked about a mission trip, I was like, "We have to go on this," and I had, young children, and it wasn't right, but I felt really, really pulled to do something for God. And the other side of that was I felt really unworthy to do something for God. I made a lot of mistakes in my past, as all of us have mistakes in our past. But I had a lot of reasons why I felt that, I wasn't this perfect Christian. I didn't do everything right. I, wasn't all shiny and clean throughout my whole life. And one thing that helped me to overcome that was one day it just hit me that the Bible is full of people with shady pasts. Who went on to be restored through God's grace and do great things for him. And so I thought, okay, that's a good start. The Bible doesn't tell about stories of how everyone is perfect from, except for Jesus, but perfect from the moment they were born, and then they went on to do great things for God. It's usually people who really had a rough start. So that was encouraging to me. I was working professionally as a horse trainer, and I was getting really burned out and had almost kind of lost my love for horses. It was just a way to make money and compete, and I just felt like I got to the point in my life where there was something more, and I needed to find out what that was. And I knew it was something for God, but I had no idea what it was. And so I started praying. We had young kids, and to be honest, I was really, really scared that God was going to say, "You don't need horses in your life anymore. You're a mom and, move to Africa," or something. I was really like, okay, I need to be okay with whatever he says, but I'm really scared because I grew up with horses. This was my life. I had invested so much time and money and love into them that I really hoped God would say, "Okay, you can do something with horses." But I was scared. God answered my prayers after 5.5, 6 years of praying about this and saying, "I want what you want, but I'm scared. And I really want to do something for you, but, please don't have it be too scary." God answered with Promise 23 Ranch Ministries and said to get the ladies, we thought it was going to be kids, but most of you have heard that story. God had a different plan for us. He said, use your horses, use them to connect with people. And it really just started to sink in that God made me love horses. It wasn't something extra I did on the side. That's how he made me. He gave me a mom who put me on a horse before I could walk and who had me in weekly riding lessons my whole life and hauled me to horse shows. We never went on family vacations. We went to horse shows. And I could use all of that. So my verse for today is, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well." And this was just so exciting for me because it wasn't that, I had this passion for horses, but God wanted me to do something else. It was, I made you to love horses so that you could connect with people for me. And that was just so exciting to me. It wasn't that he was going to take what I loved away from me. It was that he loved me, and he gave me this passion and said, now go use it to lead other people to me. So this last year has been so exciting. Aside from the year when I was 15, when I gave my life to Jesus, I have grown more spiritually this year than ever before. God has just blessed us over and over and over again, both me personally and through the ministry. Thank you guys so much. Everyone who came last week, everyone who helped. I was so overwhelmed by everyone's encouragement and love and support, and we made more than 3 times what I was expecting. And that was just a huge blessing. We're so looking forward to making our program better this year. But if I could just encourage you guys to know that you are wonderfully made for a purpose. And God gave you the skills and the passions and the interests that you have to be able to connect with people and to bring people into the kingdom of Christ. So I would just say, start praying. Just put yourself out there. Say, I don't know what it is yet. This is what I'm hoping you'll use because this is how you made me. And be ready to wait on him. It took, 5-6 years before he really showed me what it was. So the timeline is not ours, it's his. And just be ready to stay out of the way. I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to know what I was doing. I just had to be available. So just be available.
We had a little running joke within Promise 23 last week where I kept encouraging Jennifer, hey, God will provide, just step out, God will provide. And they needed some potatoes, so they requested some potatoes, and all of a sudden they were given 250 pounds of potatoes to use. And so we say we serve a God of 250 pounds of potatoes. He is faithful and true to his promises. So I want to encourage you in that. Jennifer, thanks for sharing. And when we listen to him and we experience him, there's nothing like that. And so we take today out, and we're gonna hear from some folks that have shared stories. And I've been telling you along the way, hey, there's some great stories going on. Pray for courage and pray for boldness, and pray that folks would. It's scary to be up front and to share, and pray for boldness. And then all of a sudden, God answered those prayers like at once, and there's the floodgates just opened up with stories, to where we go, okay, let's schedule another one of these real soon. God is mightily at work. What we're going to do is we're going to hear one story, but before we hear our first story, I want to prompt you a little bit to be thinking about what we're about. We're about being passionate about Jesus and reaching out and make other folks that are passionate about Jesus to say, come follow me as I follow Jesus. We're going to have, after this first story, a short time of an open mic time where I'm going to walk around and hold. I want to invite up Ben and Tim to come and share. Come on up front, guys. And Ben and Tim have been just excited about what God is doing, and had some great stories. Ben and Tim, I had talked a little bit about some guys that wanted to go and live among other folks, and so they had a place to stay, but they chose to stay downtown in Bellingham's homeless population, and just to share God's love that way. So appreciate you guys sharing with us. Do you need one mic or two? You good? Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing with us, guys. Appreciate it.
So is it good right here?
Yeah. And this is Ben.
Yeah, so we met each other at a really cool church called Jesus Gathering, and it's a church where they serve the poor. They sit down with the poor and have a service with the poor. And when I met Timothy, he was looking at a scripture in the Bible. He had been looking at it for a while, and it's the one where Jesus says, pray to the Lord of the harvest, because the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So pray that the Lord will send forth laborers into the harvest. And I was like, whoa, actually that's a life verse for me. And I told him that, and he was like, well, I really want to do this. I really want to be a laborer for the Lord. And so we both felt called through that verse. We felt like Jesus was calling us to lowly places in the city of Bellingham, which was like with the poor, people who live outside and people who are on the street. And so we started going after that, and we were kind of like really excited about it. One night we were going out, and we were really excited. We're like, we're going to go preach the gospel to these people. And all of a sudden, Timothy looked at me, and he just kind of stopped us, and he said, we need to be really meek with these people. And it was like God was speaking through him. And so we just kind of like slowed down, and we're like, whoa, like we don't really know what we're doing. We don't really know, we don't know these people. It's like going into an entirely different world. And so we get down there, and that night we just sat down on the sidewalk with some people, and they were drunk, but they were actually teaching us something about God's kingdom. And we started realizing, why God says, blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom. And we started learning about the kingdom from them. And we were just sitting down at their level, and we were listening to them and learning from them. And it was really amazing. And there was one night, there's a friend of ours, his name is John Ing, and he has a ministry called Rising Hope. And we were kind of like learning from him, and he was teaching us that actually in the Bible, the Lord instructs us as his people and as the church over and over so many times. He instructs us that it's our responsibility to care for the poor. And if we actually took that seriously, things would change. They wouldn't be living outside. And so, there was just one story that I had thought of. I was talking to this lady, and she was explaining to me just her situation. She had lost her kids. She was an addict. She had been trying to get help for probably quite a few years with programs in the city that offer help, but it wasn't working for her. And she just told me this one thing that completely changed my mind about how to reach out to these people. And she said, I don't just want someone to tell me that I can change. I want someone to look at me like I can change. And when she said that, I just realized, that it's not necessarily about, trying to bring the gospel to these people and preach the gospel to them. It's more like, just being a friend to them and walking with them through life. And that's kind of what, when Timothy said to me that one night, he said, we just need to be really meek with these people. That's kind of what the Lord was teaching us, is that it's not like we have something great to bring to them. It's more like, like what Jenny was saying, that like, I'm just as shameful. I have just as much of a shady past, and I want to relate to you. Like, I need God's grace just as much as you do. And so that's kind of what the Lord has been teaching us.
About a year ago was when I really first encountered Jesus in my life, because he just delivered me from like the darkness, the darkest darkness. And so I started really getting on fire, like I really want more of this God thing. And he showed me this verse in Luke where the apostles ask for the same thing. They say, increase our faith, and Jesus gives a really good answer. He says, well, follow my commandments, and he manifests himself in that way. So I start really reading the gospel, and I never even read the gospel before. I barely even knew who Jesus was, and it was just really profound to me. Like, God really came down onto the earth. He left his heavenly throne to come down into the filth with us, and then he didn't even stop there. He just kept going down, 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 down until he suffered the ultimate condemnation. And then he asks us, he says, take up your cross daily and follow me. Forsake everything and follow me in that descension, into the dirt and into the filth of this world, And so I know, because he just encountered me, he totally grabbed me out of the pit and said, this is it, this is the truth. And so I said, all right, let's do this. And I really start to look at my life and lay things at the altar and let him just consume it with his fire, And he, and as I start surrendering everything, I can feel like this cry inside me, seriously, for the poor and for the captives and for the brokenhearted, and it's Jesus. He's seriously just crying out, like filling me with so much empathy and making me want to reach out for these people who are suffering. He's giving me this immense passion for suffering and this like desire to learn from suffering and the genuineness that comes from it. So yeah, I meet Benjamin, and he's just as on fire as I am, and we're sold out. So we decide to get a tent and go camp out with these people, you know. And here I am thinking, I'll have this message of hope, and I'm going to totally just rock these people's world. People are going to be saved by me, and I got this message. Here I come. And right away I learn, you know, truly theirs is the kingdom, and they're forced to just rely on so little, and the relationships they form are so intimate. It's really the kingdom that they live in. And I started realizing that I had been looking at myself like Jesus, but really, you read the whole gospel, and there's always these multitudes following him, you know, and that I was just a face in the crowd watching Jesus. And even though he was using me, but he wasn't using me in the way I thought, but just the fact that I got to be a face in the crowd and just look at him and watch him work in these people's lives. You know, these people are so broken, and so grace and redemption and deliverance is just abounding, and I get to watch that, and that was it. That's as good as it gets, just to sit at his feet and learn from these people within the kingdom, you know. And I'm learning so much about kingdom life in my life through all this, and so I'm just learning from Jesus firsthand, encountered, and just continue to shed everything in my life and continue to make sacrifices and pursuing the kingdom of God and just everything. And because he's really it. You start surrendering everything, and you learn that the only thing worth any value in this whole world is love. Like everything else is superficial, just so superficial, so meaningless in comparison to love, and especially love for the poor, you know, love for everyone. And I just keep shedding it, and I lose everything at this point. I've shed like all material possessions. I have no money, I have no job, I don't have a place to live. I'm sleeping in my car with Benjamin. And I'm like, all right, God, this is seriously a fraud. Like, you really cheated me here. And and then within a week, like, he just started pouring on the blessings for me, you know. And you just have to keep in mind, like, I seriously hadn't done anything. All I'd done is go out and just watch him and look at him and seek his face and his heart in that way. And he brought me this family to move in with. He started pouring on awesome job opportunities. I got back into school. I fell in love with like the most beautiful girl in the world. And he just did it all, and I didn't do anything. All I did was like lay down my life on the altar and let him burn it. And then he builds on it with gold, so it's really awesome. But Jesus, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to this church family, because you guys really are like a family, and there's so much warmth of God's love here. And also just for the people who have been praying for us, because I did put in prayer requests when we were out there doing this, and I seen a lot of answer, God answering those prayers and miracles happening for these people, of just him picking them up and placing them in places where they're cared for by God's love. And some of them I haven't seen on the streets for a long time. And so God answered those prayers, and thank you so much for praying. And thank you, Pastor Bill and Pastor Tyler, for being our friends. You guys are awesome bros.
Thanks so much, man.
It's encouraging to see God at work in your lives, and to see God at work in the Good News body, you know. Ben and Timothy talked about how God kind of rewires us when we are focused on God's work and God's kingdom. He rewires our brain a little bit. We have 2 more stories of life transformation. I want to make sure we get to both of them. I'm going to invite Steve and Kenny up front, guys. Come on up here. I've talked about Steve and Kenny before. Been praying a lot. God, give them courage, give them boldness. Share them. Share what God's been doing, and it's been so great. God's timing has been so rich that I talked to Kenny and Steve on the phone this week, and they're pumped. You guys ready for it? Oh, good. All right. That is an awesome response. No and yes. You ever feel that way? Yes, you're ready, and no, you're not. So God, we pray you give Kenny courage right now. God, he knows that he's ready to share in you, and by himself he feels like he's not. So God, I pray for continued courage for my brother Kenny. Give him great boldness as he shares. Amen.
I'm up here with Kenny because about 5 years ago, Kenny had a stroke, and so I don't notice it much, but I help him. You know, our memory works off of clues. So sometimes I can just give him a little clue, and then he's got it. And so, and I'm here to also encourage you to challenge others with the gospel. Kenny and I have gotten to know each other for the last year or more, and it's our friendship. He's my friend, my brother, and my neighbor, and we met in December of 2012, and you know, these stories are quite similar in that we confess that we became observers of what the Lord is doing. And I was never a driver in this story. I was an observer of what the Lord was doing, and I was amazed. And like you've been saying in your stories, I've grown so much just by looking back at the day and what's happened, and even writing some of this stuff down. But so, Kenny, you can tell your story, some of your story, and then I'm going to interrupt him. But he's got it written down and we're prepared.
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank first of all,
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank for everyone who prayed for me back in February when I had a mini stroke. I appreciate that a lot. And me by saying I'd like to read this story to you about my life. Since I was born in '63, my childhood was very happy. I remembered my mother and grandmother reading the Bible to us before going to bed. I got married when I was 18, but it didn't work out, so I moved on. I worked very hard throughout my life and pushed God away for so long. That's when I was abusing drugs, drinking, and smoking, and I didn't care about my life. When I was 32, I moved to Washington State to work, and I found myself doing the same thing over. But in the year 2008, I had my first major heart attack and seen my life flash before my eyes. And 4 months later, I had a stroke. That's when I was lying in the hospital bed, and that's when I prayed to God for help, and that's when I started searching for God to help me. I started to look at life and God in a different way. More seriously, that's when my mother passed away in 2012. I was very disappointed and mad at God. On December 2012, my sister and I met Steve and Carmen, our neighbors. That's when Steve was talking about God, and that's when I told them that I didn't see eye to eye with God. Shortly after this, I told God that I was very sorry, and that's when Steve
What had been going on is the Lord had pressed me into. I've been walking by. We live by this complex called Beacon Manor, and it's been there since '97. And I got so tired of walking by this place and thinking, you know, all these people, and I really not loving them. And I confessed that to the Lord, you know, and said. So I started walking around the sidewalk and praying, and in November of 2012, and I thought, I was asking the Lord, you know, what can I give these people? I mean, if I just go talk to them, like knocking door to door, that would be, I don't know how well that would go over. And this answer came to my mind as I was walking home, and I saw Carmen in the kitchen baking cookies. I said, well, the thought came in my mind, people love gifts, you know. So I asked Carmen, my co-worker, and I said, could we go take Christmas cookies over to Beacon Manor people? Just door to door, and so we did. And Kenny and his sisters are the first ones we ran into. And we just simply brought plates full of cookies and said, knock, knock, Carmen and I, and we're your neighbors, and we love you, and we haven't in the past, and we would like to be more available. If you have needs, we're available. And also I had a big coat on, and I had the Gospel of John with the plan of salvation in there, and so I'd give it to people who I thought were open, And we hit 20 places, and Kenny was the first one that we ran into, and that was one of the first statements he said was, God and I aren't seeing eye to eye. And one of the things was he had a real tremendous disappointment in losing his mother. And so Carmen and I said, you know what? We lost our son 3 years ago, and we know what that's like. We know that there's that. So, but right away I could see that the Lord was working in Kenny's heart, because he comes back in about a week and he says, and it was this confession that he had told the Lord that he was sorry. That's a start. I can tell this whole thing has caused me to really realize that God is at work way ahead of everything, and the Gospel Primer brought that out when we were reading it last September, that the Lord is way ahead of clearing stuff away so that we can make a decision and receive the love of God through Jesus Christ. And so Kenny comes over, and he had a request in spring, about a year ago, that I'd make him a bench. And so the word opportunity, Mary Beth, Marvin Tinckley, that was his word delivered to us, opportunity. That brother used to walk among us, and that was always coming out of his mouth, opportunity, and they're all over the place. So I said, we'll make a bench. So we made a bench together, and we spent time together, and we deepened our friendship. And then,
I'll take my whole story.
okay, just a second. And then what happened is, it's so important that we listen to other people, because Pastor Bill said in July to the elder team, he said, make a new friend, And I thought, I could either make a new friend or deepen this one. So I decided to deepen this one. And what I did is, the word available has come up here. There's rhema all over this room today. And to be available. On Saturdays, I would tinker around and I'd say, in case Kenny comes around that end of that fence, I'm going to be here. And I'm going to deepen our relationship. So the bench that I made broke, so he comes and brings it back, and so we had time, and so we began to, that's an opportunity, see? And the whole purpose was Lord worked on me to give up time so I'd be available, and so Kenny, tell the rest of your story.
All right. Steve and I started a friendship in the year 2013. And I asked Steve if he can make me a bench, so we did it together. Steve talked to me about God all summer. So he gave me a book called The Abundant Life Bible. It's this one. Then we started reading every Wednesday night in the fall. I told Steve I was ready to take God into my life. Then I prayed. There was like a little prayer in there. Prayed, Lord, I thank you for paying for the sins I have committed. I give my life to you and teach me the way to live. Amen. And after that, life was changed forever. What I noticed is I stopped cursing, swearing, and I tell you that I was very blessed that I took him into my life. And he will always stay in my life forever. And now I love telling people I love being a Christian, and now I put it all my trust and faith in God. And going to church and meeting people and getting to know God better and going to Bible study and telling what church I go to and sharing the gospel with others. And my best verse of the Bible is, but to all who believed him and accepts him, he gave the right to become children of God. And I told Steve took this from the Bible. This means anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone and the new life has just begun.
Good. We made it. So what's happened since then, Kenny? You were
Just like Jennifer, I'm nervous.
So we went through a trial here this last February. Tell us a little bit about that.
Trial.
Well, your health.
My health's been, my heart, been having strokes, TIAs. When I was in the hospital bed, I prayed to God this February that if He could be my shield.
Mm-hmm.
And I thanked Him for His wisdom, and I just loved learning about the Bible more.
What he did is he kept confessing, the Lord is my shield, my life, my health is in his hands. And he just really learned a really good, he was obedient and walking that way. And his trust in God is just deep, has deepened because of that. You did good, brother. You did good there. So what are we going to, what's in the future? What are we going to be doing from now
Oh,
on?
in the future, Steve and I is going to be building some benches and ganging up on, what's that? What's where I live?
Beacon Manor.
Beacon Manor.
Yeah. We're gonna pass on the story. Is what we're gonna do. So it's wonderful. We better get going, Kitty.
No, I don't want to get down.
Whatever's easiest for you. Thanks for sharing, guys. You did excellent. It is so hard to share in a short amount of time, and I think everyone has done a great job because it's just kind of like the preview of a movie. You just kind of get some tidbits to make you more interested. Go talk to them. Talk to all the folks that have shared. I have to share one way that God's been at work in my heart. You know, every Sunday, Pastor Tyler and I think, okay, God, what do you want? We don't want it to just be a normal Sunday morning, come to church, sing some songs, pray some prayers, whatever, go home. God, we want to get a sense of what you're doing. And both Pastor Tyler and I looked at everything God had planned. We still have one more story, by the way. We looked at all this and we go, the first reaction I had was, oh, that's too much. And the thought hit me, can you have too much of God? Or am I letting our culture of time and attention spans dictate? Ooh. And so the whole week my prayer has been, God, we want to be on your time. We want more of you. If we're praying as a church to be passionate followers reaching out, as God rekindles passion, there's going to be more, right? We do have one more story, and that's a story of Darby and Winona. Today is a special day. Winona's going to share her story. Darby and Winona, come on up, guys. Gals, sorry. I know. So if you don't know, Darby's my wife. Winona is a dear friend of ours. We've been hanging out together for the last 2 years or so. And it's been a journey. Winona has said, I want to share. And so we go, great. And then she goes, no, I don't want to share. And, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, that makes it worse. And so we've been living life together. Glad you're up here sharing with us. So you'll do great. So Darbs and Winona, you guys can share. And then after, Winona has also wanted to be baptized today. And so after she shares her story, see, we're pumped for you. I know. So we're going to let Winona share her story, and then afterwards we'll sing song and take our offering. And by the way, the offering just isn't something we do. This is what we're about as a church, life transformation, what we've heard. That's the mark. You know, we are all about that. So after the singing, though, the kids are gonna come back in, and we're all gonna go nuts and celebrate your baptism, Winona. That'll be right over there. So we're pumped for you. God, I pray the same thing we prayed for Kenny, that you would grant just a real peace, God, a real clarity, and we look forward to hearing how you're at work, God. Amen. Go ahead, sweetie.
This is my sister in Christ, Winona, and we met around 2 years ago, 2.5, 3, I don't know. And we were at the Boys and Girls Club. They have a preschool playtime, so I was like, ooh, this lady's really nice to her daughter, and I like her. And so I started stalking her for Jesus. And yeah, we exchanged phone numbers, and we started meeting more regularly, on and off. Like, we had times where we didn't communicate sometimes, and it was, crazy stuff. You know how life goes. Everyone's busy. So yeah, I invited her to the egg hunt, and I knew that God had given me tons of love to share, just as He has given you, Christian. He's not going to run out of love for us to give to each other. So yeah, I think now is a good time to share this verse. This verse came to me just this morning, so thank you, Lord. 1 John 4, 7 and 8 says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever has love has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love." So, you need a chair. She needs a chair. Here's a stool. I had been challenged after moving here from Texas with Bill. I shared the gospel a lot when I was a kid, and we had a fenced backyard, and I wouldn't let the kids out until they accepted Jesus. So, and I was a tall kid. So even the older ones, they had to accept Jesus before they left. So coming here was really good, because there was a renewed sense from the Lord that, we have this love if we know Him, and He wants us to give it away, and He is working. And it's not about us. No matter how afraid or uncomfortable or even excited we are, it's not about us, it's about God. So, so I was so glad that He moved me to share with you.
You should tell them your dream, though.
My dream?
Yes.
Okay, are you sure? Yes. Okay. So back in the last millennium, I started going to college and Whitworth, so some of you know that. And so, yeah, there are a lot of Caucasians around here. And I was working on making friends, and I had this dream, and I was with a couple of girls from my hall and my roommate, and there was this black girl, and she was my best friend. And I woke up and I was like, what is this all about? So that was long ago, but I feel like that dream was you, and that happened to be when she came to the United States. So I think the Lord was letting me know something.
Okay, where to start? I grew up I was born in South America, grew up in Amsterdam, and met my husband in Amsterdam, and moved in 1999. I moved to DC with him. We got married in 2000. A Suriname girl growing up in the Netherlands, getting married in Oklahoma. On our wedding day, we promised the pastor that we were going to go to church, and I always felt like I wanted to go to church. I didn't really grow up going to church, but my mom was always talking about God, Anyway, I tried to convince my husband to go to church with me in D.C. It didn't happen, and he was living, a difficult life, and just pulled me in. We moved to Washington State, 7 years ago, and this was my place. I just gosh, I can't do this. I just felt that this was the place to be. I knew I wanted to go to church really bad, but I wanted to go as a family. My marriage was already, had a lot of problems and everything, and I just felt like we need to go to church as a family. It didn't happen. I met Darby, and it's funny because I saw her and I was like, it's a nice lady. She looks nice. You know, I think the one thing that I remember is that I would read to my youngest daughter, Kennedy, and Liam would always come and sit there and listen to the stories, and Darby would be like, no, 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 get away from them. I'm like, no, the more the better. Yes, she did bother me about church. You know, but I have to say, moving here, I don't know how many religions I got at the door every week. And this is funny. I had some Mormon people at my door, and they kept bothering me, come to church, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to church, get this over with. Maybe this is the church. I don't know. I thought that I would get struck by lightning sitting in that church because I did not feel it at all. I said, okay, you know what? I just have to feel it. I don't know which direction I want to go. I just have to feel the church. And on Easter, okay, I'm a big crybaby, sorry. On Easter, I think something changed in me when Darby and Bill just sat down with me after the Easter egg hunt and just prayed for my marriage. Something just changed that day. And, you know, it was like, okay, it's not real. You were just a crybaby. It's not real. I kept fighting it. I kept fighting it. I kept fighting it. I remember Pastor Bill having a service saying, people just go to church on Sunday because that's the right thing to do. And that was definitely me in the beginning. I was like, okay, I'll just go and get my pep talk, you know, but the rest of the week I didn't care about anything. The most amazing thing, and yes, we are sisters, he planned it this way. Darby would probably feel when I was miserable, and she would just call me, and I would just throw it out on, just tell her everything, and every time I would hang up after Darby called, I had a huge smile on my face. I would feel so good inside after your phone calls. And he put her on my path because he knew I needed someone strong. He knew I was going to need you, you know. You know, Darby and Bill, all three of us were fighting to save my marriage. We tried everything, all three of us. We tried every single thing. And I was planning to leave this marriage. I just didn't know how. I was like, I'm going to save some money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I don't have control over my life. He just told me on August 31st, you pack a bag right now for you and the kids and leave. And it's like, I don't have anything. This feeling was like, just leave. And I did. And it was hard because I just jumped in the deep, didn't know where to go, what to do. My other sister, Holly, she helped me for 6 weeks. I know I called Darby almost every day, twice, 3 times a day. And she kept saying, do you want to keep the problem or do you want to give it to him? Because if you give it to him, he will take care of it. And I was like, nah, whatever. That's not going to happen. I got control. And at one point, Darby just said, you know what? You want the problem because you're not giving it to him. The day that I did, it was just beautiful outside. You know, it's like, you know, I can't do this anymore. I'm not strong enough. Just please take it and take care of it. And he made me a believer because, you know, he took everything, you know. He kept showing me, you know, it was like I like to have control over things. The days that I said I can do it, I don't need him, I'll prove to him that I can do it without him. Those were the days that I'd be driving around for hours and not get anything solved. And there were a couple of times he truly made a believer in me. And I would be driving, and it's like, I gotta tell someone, I feel so happy inside. Who can I share it with? And I would call Darby while driving on the road saying, Darby, guess what? He just proved to me that he has my life. And
then you'd hang up.
yes, because I was driving. But he truly made a believer in me. You know, and I've heard from a lot of people around me that I'm calm now. I don't worry about things. And all I keep saying is every morning when I wake up with my coffee, I go on my patio and just talk to him. And be like, you know, I think I have things under control. You know, but just show me, just guide me, just tell me what to say, and the feeling is awesome. You know, I mean, I'm calm. I don't worry about my husband. I don't worry about the things he wants to do. It's like, my Father is going to take care of it.
That's right.
You know, okay. And, oh gosh, okay, stop crying. And I knew I wanted to be baptized, but I was scared. I don't know why, but I was scared. Maybe because of this, sitting here on the stage. And how long did I know it? Less than a month. I sent Bill an email saying, I feel brave today. Let's do it.
And your mom and dad are here.
And yes, and I'm, the way I see it, this is going to be a new beginning for me. And I wanted my parents to be here to witness the first day of my new life.
New life.
You guys are just...